Our next value video is going to discuss how to create a gradient value scale. A gradient value scale differs from a step value scale in that there isn't breaks in between the color. It's one smooth process transitioning from a very saturated or dark color and then blending very evenly and smoothly to a very light color. In this case it's black to white. In our case we're moving this red from darkest to white. So we want to achieve the same goals we did on our step value scale by avoiding balding and inconsistency. We're going to start over here on the far right with a very dark, thick, heavy line. This is our darkest value. And then we want to start moving in a vertical up and down to the left to create our gradient value scale. As we do this, remember we're moving from bottom to top and top to bottom in long vertical lines. We are not stopping in the middle and continuing in the middle or in the bottom. We move from the bottom to the top in nice, smooth, consistent lines. We're avoiding balding by making sure we go to the top and the bottom. If we color outside the lines, we do need to use an eraser and erase some of those that go across the section in which we're coloring. A gradient value scale requires a little bit more effort to make sure that it has that smooth blending from darker to lighter. So I'm coming in here and putting in some of my color, and as I move to the left I'm making sure I get a little bit lighter with my color. You can see it's not super detailed at this point. I'm just trying to get a little bit lighter as I move in those vertical up and downs towards a lighter value. In a gradient value scale, you have to go back and rework certain areas to make sure that it is indeed going smoothly. In the step value scale, you focus on one section at a time, and you can decide later if it works for the correct value or not. In the gradient value scale, we're working on it all at the same time, so we have to kind of double back and make sure things look right and that they are the correct value. So here you can see we have a dark value, we're blending in, but I would say this value right here is closer to what this is. So you can see the value isn't quite in the right spot. So I'm just going to keep moving this vertical value from top to bottom, keeping it a lighter value, because I can go back and add more value later. It's a lot harder on value scales to take away dark values. It's easier to just add more value later. So I'm just going to continue this lighter value, making sure that I don't go too dark with it. So up and down vertical lines. Gradient value scale takes a little bit more time, a little bit more practice to make sure that we've got that smooth, even blending. Notice I'm keeping that nice vertical up and down movement. To get lighter value, just less pressure. I'm not pushing as hard with the pencil. My hand is a little bit farther back. And you'll also notice on the gradient value scale, I'm taking color almost all the way to the edge. Almost all the way to the edge. You can see how close I am before I leave it pure white. So here's a basic first step. Then we need to go back and add more gradient to our value scale. So as we start with our darkest dark, we're moving into more mediums. Notice I'm keeping a nice vertical movement with my pencil. I have not changed direction. You should never change direction. We don't want to have lines that cross. So just keeping nice vertical up and down. You'll also notice my pencil doesn't really leave the paper here. I'm just letting those vertical lines do all the work for me. Gradients can happen when we start to layer our colors of different values on top of each other. So you can see coming up here, nice vertical lines, not having the balding. Coming down to the bottom, moving in that nice gradient way. Now notice right here there's a jump or a step from this value to the lighter value. We want to make sure that we don't have jumps on a gradient value scale. So using a really light pressure, you're just going to go over that jump, making sure to blend in the value really well so that we don't jump from one value to the next. It should be like a slide that you simply just smoothly fall down from a darker value into a lighter value. So just continuing on, you'll want to double check. Always remember to go back. You can hold it at arm's length and squint to see the actual changes. When you squint, kind of blur your vision a little bit as you look at a value scale. You can see inconsistencies better. You can see values a little bit better. And then you can decide where exactly you need to put certain colors or more value or have less value. So as we're coming in here, just adding more and more detail. So you'll want to keep going with that until you've got a really nice gradient value scale. Here's a finished gradient value scale. You can see we move very smoothly from the super dark, saturated, meaning lots of color, all the way down to our very light. And you can see down here it goes almost to the edge before we're done with the color. I don't want to see a large chunk of white. It should move very, very lightly with that color all the way to the edge. So always remember, keep going back, double check, and see where your color is at, and making sure you've got a nice smooth gradient.